Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Before I go further, I would like to thank Sister Liza Fatma Abilasa for inviting me to your virtual talk session, and I would like to greet each sister who is present here today, Ramadan Mubarak. Alhamdulillah, we are blessed to have reached this month of mercy, and we hope and pray that we will be able to make the most out of it. Allahumma ameen. So I am your sister Indin, Shaira, and today inshallah I will be taking part in your virtual talk session by sharing to you some tidbits regarding the topic maintaining my modesty in this modern world. So to begin, let us first define what is modesty. Modesty, or haya in Arabic, is a very important Islamic value, especially for a Muslim woman. Modesty is often translated into shamefulness, bashfulness, or shyness. According to Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah, haya actually has 7 subdivisions, but what we are going to talk today is just one of them, and that is haya jinaya, or the shamefulness of committing a crime. An example of this haya in the noble Quran is when Prophet Adam alayhi salam fled in paradise and Allah asked him, "Are you escaping from me, O Adam?" To which he, Adam alayhi salam, replied, "No, my Lord, rather I am being ashamed in front of you." So as a Muslim woman, haya usually takes the form in the way we dress up, in the way we talk and interact with other people. There are secular people who believe that being modest or bashful is a weakness, because instead of speaking what our minds think right there and then, we evaluate many times if there is benefit in turning our thoughts into speech. That instead of doing whatever we please, whatever we want, we evaluate if there is a greater benefit in turning our thoughts and speech into actions. Because as Muslims, we always believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day when we will be held accountable for all of our deeds in this dunya. Non-Muslims think that we always need to speak up. We always need to be assertive. But no, in Islam, that is not the case. Modesty may be a weakness for non-Muslims, but in Islam it is a strength, because modesty is a part of our faith. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-imanu bid'un wa sab'un aw bid'un wa sittuna syu'bah. Wal-haya'u syu'batun minal iman." Faith has over 70 or 60 branches, and modesty is a branch of faith. If we talk about modesty in today's world, there is personally, I think there are 3 persisting issues that we need to address. And these 3 are virtual modesty, modesty in the workplace, and modest empowerment. First is virtual modesty. Today's world is a digital world, and it has become more of it since the pandemic happened last year. While virtual interaction may appear harmless, if we really think about it, it is actually a wider avenue to break rules. Because in a digital world, there is really no physical interaction, so chatting with the opposite gender feels safer. In the digital world, our comments and posts do not make a sound. We only make them loud in our minds. So when we interact with friends online, we do it carefree, because we think that it's okay. With the absence of actual laughing out loud, we think that there is no immodesty in what we do online. But no, this isn't okay, because this is complacency. This is slowly falling into the trap of shaitan. We are actually deceiving ourselves that we are not doing anything wrong just because our actions do not literally violate Allah's laws. And what do I mean by literally violating Allah's laws? For example, is a hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wherein he said, "Man yadman li ma bayna lahyayhi wa ma bayna rijlayhi adman lahul jannah." Whoever can guarantee the chastity of what is between his 2 jawbones and what is between his 2 legs, I guarantee paradise for him or for her. The organs being referred to in this hadith are the tongue and the private parts. This is because if they are left uncontrolled, they may commit major sins, like the private part may commit the major sin of zina, na'udhu billah, while the tongue may utter words of disbelief, innovation, or we may simply hurt someone's feelings. So when we take this hadith literally and apply it to the carefree chats that we do with the opposite sex as well as the online interaction with our friends, we will find nothing wrong with what we are doing. Because literally, we are not using our tongue and our private parts to chat or post on social media. Technically, we are using our fingers to type, scroll, and swipe through our Facebook, social, and other social media accounts. But is it right to conclude that we are really not doing anything wrong on social media? No, because the point of the hadith is not just controlling the action of the tongue and the private part. It is actually the guaranteeing of chastity, or the maintaining of modesty. So it is imperative of us to go beyond the literal meanings of things. With the advent of technology, it is no longer just the tongue that's dangerous and make us vulnerable to committing sins. We find our fingers guilty of that too. So in the same way that we act shy, in the same way that we control our speech when we are physically around people, let us also control what we put on our social media accounts. Think, reflect before we click. The second aspect is modesty in the workplace. As a minority in your current school, you relate to the constant struggle of being firm with your religion, while most students are doing the exact thing you are forbidden to do in Islam. As you start living the educational stage of your life and venture through adulthood, the struggle becomes more challenging. As you approach the workplace, you are faced with scenarios that require interaction with the opposite sex, especially if your boss is a male. There will be informal chats with workmates that sometimes become too green for your innocent mind and ears. And you can only do is cringe by your own and feel awkward, especially if they point out that such conversation should be banned because you're there. We don't want special attention, honestly. We actually just want to be any other worker at the workplace. But most of the time, it cannot be avoided, and people will always attempt to help us blend in. Talking to the opposite sex who is not our mahram is allowed in certain scenarios, and that includes talking to your teachers or classmates or your future boss and office mates, but solely for school or work-related conversation only. But aside from that, we must avoid unnecessary interactions. I have personally gone through this test, and wallah, it was a struggle. Because eventually, when you go through the workplace, when you become an adult, when you start building on your own career, you will see that there will always be an issue in wherever you go, in whatever kind of workplace you can be in. Whether you are in a non-Muslim vicinity or you are in a Muslim-dominant community, people pleasing will be there. And sometimes when you get too carried away by your dunya, by your career goals, dunya makes you chase for it, that you become loose with your Islamic values. That is the nature of life. Life is an unending chase. So it is really important for us to surround ourselves with faithful people, to always seek knowledge in Islam so that we can be reminded every now and then, because indeed, reminders benefit the believers. The third and the last persisting issue that we must address is modest empowerment. Women empowerment is a very hot trend in the past few years. At some point, it actually is a good thing, since women become braver. They are given more opportunity and be more productive members of the society. But if you are a constant follower of Shaira Muslima, you will notice that I don't use the word women empowerment. Instead, I use Muslima empowerment, because though I find benefit in women empowerment, it eventually becomes excessive and irrational. Because the mantra of women empowerment is, I can be but what I want to be, I can do what I want to do, my body, my life, my choice, my law, my rule. It is all about the self. And this mantra is totally against Islamic values, because in Islam, we do not follow our nafs, our desires, and whims. We discipline them. In fact, we even treat them as our own personal enemy. Just like this Ramadan, that even though Shaitan and his accomplices are locked down in hell, we still find ourselves committing sins against Allah. We cannot blame them on the whispers of Shaitan, so it just shows that we are still committing, and it is not because of Shaitan, it is out of our own personal desires. In Islam, Allah's divine orders have the upper hand. It is our topmost goal to follow and implement it in our lives, even when some of them are against our personal whims. So if we want to be empowered, let us be Islamically empowered by incorporating modesty in it. How? For example, is in our clothing. While I can dress with however I want is the mantra of an empowered woman, ours should be, I dress appropriately for the occasion but without violating Allah's laws. Modern hijab fashion may tempt us to wear pants or long skirts but with tucked-in blouses, or uncover our feet in public because socks don't really match heels, thinking that these are fine because they are still long or we still have the hijab around our head. In a Muslim minority school like yours, you might not even see anything about this. But let us go back to the authentic teaching of our religion. Is it really okay to wear pants? Is it really okay to wear skirts but with tucked-in blouses when these show the shape of our body? Is it really okay to expose our feet when it is considered as our aura that must be fully covered? Modesty is a weakness for most non-Muslims. It is even a proof of oppression for them, because that college girl who used to laugh out loud at the corridor is now covering her mouth as she giggles, because now she is practicing her deen. The college girl who used to be the life of the party is now nowhere to be found. The college girl who used to always pair with the heartthrob in high school doesn't even want to be poked by a man now. Practicing her deen changed her. She became modest. Non-Muslims think that this mandatory duty to be modest oppresses her, but she rather believes in the words of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that al-haya'u khayrun kulluhu. All of modesty is good. Though modesty is not a part of her nature, not a part of mine, not a part of yours, we try and will always try to be modest, because that is how we should be as a Muslim woman. There is still a lot more to talk about modesty, but at this point, I leave you with the following verses for you to reflect. If Allah is in control of everything, why must I be discouraged with their threats? If Allah has already made me a queen of His deen, why would I get hurt if they treat me less? If Allah values my bashfulness, how can I still believe that it's a weakness? If Allah is rewarding me for my efforts to obey Him, how could I still feel oppressed? Won't I rather be a thankful slave than a creation who always transgress? Won't I rather utter thanks to Him, who amidst my shortcomings keeps me blessed? Isn't swelling one's pride and desire worth it in exchange for being modest, when I know it transforms me into a woman of piety, who is in Allah's eyes the best? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.